What's up, everyone? Back for another beer review, and today is Wednesday, which of course means it's time for another West New York Wednesday here on the channel. And the beer I'm reviewing today once again comes from the Mortalis Brewing Company, and they are headquartered in Avon, New York, and this is their apple pie, and this is a part of their diner pie series. So they're calling this one a fruit ale brewed with apple, coconut, vanilla, cinnamon, and granola. Comes in at 6% alcohol by volume. No IBUs listed and time of review. This can is just over 2 months old. So I didn't plan on reviewing this one for today's West New York Wednesday. However, it's been about, I don't know, a couple weeks since I've been to the beer store. And I didn't want to review like an aged beer from the West New York area because I've been doing a lot of like barrel aged beers, and that's pretty much all the aged beers I had or that I have on hand. So this was the only other West New York beer I had in my fridge, and I'm like, you know what? It's time to give it a go. Now, their diner pie series, they're trying to replicate, pies from a diner in beer form. Now, the one thing that I noticed with this series is that they specifically call it a fruit ale instead of like a smoothie sour or a sour ale. So I'm pretty sure these are not actually base sours. They're just generic ales. Now, I've had one beer within this series. It was their strawberry rhubarb pie, and it was tart. Then again, rhubarb can be very tart and sour. You have strawberries and whatnot. They also have a mixed berry pie. What else do they have? A peach pie. I think they've done 5 in total. I forget the other one. But yeah, apple pie. I love some apple pie. I've reviewed a couple apple pie inspired beers over the past couple months. So this is the last one I have on hand, and hopefully it is quite delicious. So we're going to crack it open, get it into the glass, and see what we got going on here. So yeah, I just noticed, looking at the label, they call it a fruit ale and not a fruit sour. Like, this is not going to be in probably your Hydra realms. Oh, a little bit of an explosion here. Nice. We're going to give it a pour here. This has been kept cold the entire time, so I don't know what that's all about, but hopefully everything's cool and it didn't undergo a secondary fermentation here, like some sour beers are known to do. But that's why they tell you to keep them cold and drink fresh, right? But I read an article recently about how a lot of these breweries end up, the different techniques they have so the beers don't explode and start to re-ferment. So yeah, if I ever find that, or should ever find it, if I do find that article, maybe I'll link it in the community tab in case anybody is curious. So we got the hashtag proper glassware, of course, Mortalis glassware. Now, this looks like a heavily fruited, sour typically that has the fruit pectin because they're probably using apple puree, has the remnants around here, big bubbles. This looks like, murky filling of an apple pie for sure. It has like this brownish, like almost granola color to it. Very murky and turbid. Can't see through it. Again, the fruit pectin's everywhere. Hold up the light. Yeah, you can't see through that. Kind of what I expected for a beer like this. And again, it's in the hashtag proper glassware. Why do I always say that? I don't know. Shout out to Joe over at Joe's Arcade, who always says beer tastes better in proper glassware. He's not wrong. Let's get nose. Yeah, it smells like someone took an apple pie and crushed it up in a beer. I'm getting a heavy dose of granola and coconut. Now, I don't know about you guys when it comes to apple pie, but I don't remember coconut being in apple pie. I'm sure maybe like an apple crumble or something like that you would get coconut. Maybe it's an ingredient that some people use in apple pies, but yeah, it's definitely coconut, granola, cinnamon, underlying apples, of course. I don't know if you're going to be able to pick up on the carbonation. Very carbonated, for sure. I don't know if the mic will pick that up. So I'm pretty much getting everything that they say on there. There's apple, there's coconut, there's vanilla, there's cinnamon, and there's granola. And it smells, here's the problem I might have with this beer. Because this is an ale and not an actual base sour based on what they said on the label. And how they describe this too on social media, they say this fruited smoothie ale as opposed to fruited smoothie sour. I do worry if this is going to be too much of like a rich dessert kind of ale, where if you had that sour base, it would break up the monotony of all the sweetness and kind of balance it out and make it more cohesive and easier to drink. We'll see if that's an issue with this. But right off the rip, it smells exactly what you'd expect an apple pie thrown into a beer would smell like to a T outside of that coconut. I think that coconut's a little... I noticed with a lot of Mortalis beers, a lot of their, like dessert beers, dessert sours, they have a tendency to throw coconut into the mix, and I love coconut, but I just feel like in some of them they're kind of out of place, but that's just an own personal preference. Anyway, let's get in this one. Cheers. Really nice. Really nice. I dig this one. there is a little bit of like a tartness here, right? Could be coming from the apples. They don't state what kind of apples they're using. But this doesn't just drink like a straight up ale to me. There's definitely some kind of little bit of a sourness in here, a little bit of a tartness. Again, they don't call it a sour, but my palate's picking up on it a little bit. But again, that could just be coming from the apples. Body on this one's not super thick. This is like lower side of full body at 6%. Obviously, that's huge for the ABV, but a lot of these smoothie beers, whether they're sours or ales, it can be a little bit off-putting and maybe too thick and chewy. I think this is nice for a 6% version of an apple pie, right? Like I definitely think that's right in the realm of what I'm looking for. The mouthfeel, it has like a moderate carbonation. It's very spritzy on the palate, but at the same time, it's also very smooth and creamy. The flavors, this one is not all that complex. It's, despite, the 5 adjuncts they have in this, it kind of drinks like someone, again, took an apple pie or an apple crumble and threw it into a 6% beer. From front to back, the apples are there. They're a mixture of sweet and tart apples. That granola is very prevalent despite being the last ingredient listed. It almost gives me like if you had like a some kind of like apple like yogurt, right? Or parfait, like an apple parfait where you threw maybe granola in there, apples, a little bit of cinnamon, coconut, and vanilla, right? Like, or the yogurt base was vanilla. It's kind of maybe more of like an apple yogurt parfait, more so than anything. The coconut isn't as prevalent and prominent on the palate as it was in the nose, so that's nice. Even though I love coconut, I don't think it belongs here as much as the rest of the adjuncts. The cinnamon is very light, so if you're somebody who's afraid of cinnamon, it's not overwhelming on the palate here. Now, this is pretty sweet from front to back. It's not as sweet as I thought it was going to be. Is it a dessert beer? Yes. But I think I'd be able to drink the rest of this can. I'd definitely be one and done, but that goes for the vast majority of fruited smoothie beers in general, whether they're sours or just ales or whatever. I'm usually one and done. A, super high in the calories. B, usually pretty sweet. And if they're not sweet, they're at least rich and decadent and just maybe too much of one thing. And this is, the issue I'm going to have with this one, definitely in that realm, but it's still really nice. And I think they've replicated an apple pie to some degree in beer form. 6%, when I was smelling it in the first couple sips, I did get a very slight booziness out of this, which is crazy at 6% nowadays. So many beers, you can't detect anything at that ABV. As I continue to drink on it, there's nothing. Not even a warming in the chest, nothing on the palate, so it hides the alcohol relatively well. I guess the main issue I have with this one is that I think here's the funny thing. At the beginning, I was like, oh, it's cool. It's a fruited ale instead of a sour. Maybe I'd want a sour base here. Kind of like what I said before I took a sip is like, it worries me a little bit that this might be a little bit too much. I don't think that's the case specifically for this beer, but I do think this might work better as a sour base. I think if I had a nice, more of like a firm tartness into sourness, a little bit of acidity to break up all the sweetness, I think it would mesh a little bit more with my palate. It's still really tasty. And I think if you love apple pie and you love these kinds of beers, you're going to pick this one up. And I don't think you're going to be disappointed with what you're tasting. For me, the flavors don't scream amazing. They scream really good. Really good, right? This is a tasty beverage and I enjoy it. Would you say this is a beer? Kind of just drinks like a smoothie of some sort, right? Like it doesn't really have a lot of beer. I mean, there is a little bit of beer. There might be like the slight... That granola with the base beer, give me a little bit of maybe a doughy kind of pastry-esque kind of crust, very slight, and get a little bit of like a graininess, generic kind of beer property. So it does have, I'll take that back a little bit. This does have a little bit of beer properties to it, but a lot of folks who drink these beers, and that's myself included, when you pick something up like this, I technically don't go into it thinking, oh, I hope I taste an amazing base beer out of it, because you just usually don't, right? So I think this is well made. This is pretty tasty. I enjoy it. I'm going to drink the rest of that. Have no issues with it. And that's where we're going to leave it. So if you like apple pie beers, whether they're sours or ales or whatever the case may be, pick this one up if you can get your hands on it. The Diner Pie series, the strawberry rhubarb one was fantastic. I actually had that at Beer Fest and went back for a second pour because it was so good. That one's definitely better than this to my palate, but this is still pretty good for what it is. So apple pie, a part of their Diner Pie series from Mortalis, absolutely zero issues, giving this one a low 4.25 and go 4.15 out of 5. I think it's really well done. And yeah, it's just something that I'm glad I picked up. And they just came out recently, I think in the last couple of weeks, with their mixed berry pie in this series. That one probably sounds a little bit more in my wheelhouse. I love berry pie, especially mixed berry pie is delicious. So that's something that I might give a go at some point. Anyway, price point availability. These are a little bit cheaper, I think. At least I paid a little bit less. And when I looked on their website, I think they might be trying to maybe get rid of the stock from this was canned back in late November of last year. So again, a little bit over 2 months old. On their website, it was $18 a 4-pack. You could get them shipped. I think these are typically a little bit cheaper than like your Hydras and the rest of their fruited sours, where they're $25 4-pack. I want to say this is anywhere between like $18 to $22 4-pack, depending on where you get them. At the brewery, though, I think they're like $22 a 4-pack. Could be wrong on that. At the end of the day, I think I paid like $6 something for this can, so single can, $6. Nice to try. Would I rebuy this one again at that price point? Probably not. I would try something else within the series or something else from Mortalis. It's a good beer, but it's a little bit pricey for the rating I gave it, and also kind of just how I feel about the beer overall. And Mortalis, how do you get their beer? Well, if you're in New York State, you can get their stuff on their website. You can go to one of their 3 locations in Avon, Rochester, or in Buffalo. Not for all the releases, most of them. Tavor gets their stuff online. If you can get shipping from Halftime Beverage, they get their hands on a lot of stuff. They're also in New York, but they ship all over the place. And a lot of people get random drops of Mortalis stuff in their neck of the woods. So if this is a beer that you would like to try at some point, you should probably get your hands on it. I'd imagine they'll rebrew it again at some point, like they do the vast majority of their beers. So if you've had this one before, post in the comment section. Let me know what you thought about this one. What do you think about having a fruit ale like this that's heavily fruited as opposed to sour beer? I like the concept in theory, because not everybody likes sour beer. But I do think that when you start throwing all these confectionery sweet adjuncts and fruits, like, you got apple in here, and then you throw granola in there, and then, you throw other stuff like coconut, I think the base beer might not be able to mesh well with everything going on in the beer as far as the sweetness goes, is from a sweetness standpoint. So I guess it would depend on the fruits and the adjuncts. I feel like the berries, that mixed berry pie and that strawberry rhubarb, there's already enough tartness and qualities to those fruits and adjuncts where I think you don't really need a sour base, where here, I think the sour base would have probably worked a little bit better. And if this is for some reason a sour ale and they just don't state it, I will say that I really don't taste a lot of sourness, but slight tartness again from the apples, and that's about it. So anyway, gonna shut this one down. Check back next Wednesday for another Western New York Wednesday. Like I said, I haven't been able to go to the beer store, so when I do, I'm gonna pick up a couple Western New York beers to review. I don't know what those are gonna be, so be on the lookout. Appreciate it. To the next one. Cheers.